I just want to say, I've seen people go to the polling place and turn in a blank ballot, which I guess means I don't like any of these guys. Somebody turned in a blank question card. I don't know what that means, but oddly enough, the question that seems to, although a lot of the questions are asked about the topics we've covered, the question that seems to be asked most often is how wide will this be? This starts the, I think people are reminded of the Trans-Texas corridor. The question that I get a lot here is how wide will it be, including easements? And I also get how wide is it at its base? How high will the rail be off the ground? How much will be elevated, will be bermed, and that sort of thing. So how wide and how high?
And how noisy?
We'll get that.
All right. How high will it be? Or how wide will it be? There are two main construction approaches. One is a viaduct. The vast majority of the system we built on an elevated viaduct. Where there's a viaduct, the section that's in the air, the platform the tracks sit on, is a little shy of 50 feet wide. That includes both tracks. So if you're underneath it and you look up, it's a little less than 50 feet wide. On the ground, in that application, there's no fence on the ground. So the adjacent property owners can continue to farm and ranch, move back and forth as they like, or we can accommodate roads and so forth. So that's the typical approach of building a viaduct and what it would look like. And the height at that point of those viaducts, we're using as a standard the TxDOT standard, which is 16.5 feet clearance, except unless we're crossing an interstate. And that'll be quite a bit higher. If we're crossing another state road, that'll be a little bit higher. And as we get deeper into the project design, we'll work with counties and others on specific needs for other public roads. Because again, we have no more authority to close public roads than any of you have, unless y'all are governors. So we'll work closely with local authorities, cities, counties, and the state on making those types of determinations. Where it's built on a berm, the width of the berm will vary based on the height. So we would look to accommodate and build in the pass-throughs in the berm, so you can still accommodate wildlife crossings, pedestrian crossing, farm and ranch uses, and personal automobile crossings underneath and through that berm. And so in that case, it would be high and wide. And the width of that would vary. On average, it'd be about 150 feet wide. And you'd have a fence on the ground, but not a fence obstructing that pass-through. So you'd still have free access from one side and the other through those pass-through berms.
So a cow can walk over it?
I'm sorry?
A cow can walk over it?
The cow could walk under it. The rails or the track infrastructure is built in such a way that whether it be cows or nefarious kids or anyone else can't get on the track. It's not safe for anybody. So the fences are put in place to keep that from happening, but the openings are provided such that there's free access from one side to the other where there's a berm.
Your easement is 150 feet?
On average, that's right.
Representative Schofield didn't finish asking that question. The bottom of that question says, where are you going to get the fill to the berm? And I'd like to know that when he has a berm, and it's going to be however wide, however high, where do you get the fill to that?
All right, Joe, let me say a couple things. One thing that I'd like to say is that this particular comment that was just made, the vast majority be on viaduct, is an example of the vacillation that we hear from these people. And at one point it was 40%, now it's 60%, now it's vast majority. I'd like a definition of what vast majority is. Because I think what we need to do, and I've talked to you all about this before, we need to start creating some static numbers so that people can evaluate properly what you're proposing. If they're not proposing something that we can see and understand, that's a little bit disingenuous, I think.
Thanks, Kyle. You're right. The number was about 40%. That was the number in the fall of 2014, before we had been present at any of these public meetings. Hadn't met any of you all. We had been sitting around the conference table in Dallas and Houston and elsewhere working on that mousetrap we talked about. The number was 40%. It was about 100 miles of the 240 miles. And that was based purely on what is required to accommodate environmental impacts, so wetlands impacts, to crossroads, and so forth. What we've done since then, and done a great deal of, is listen. And what we hear are concerns that elevating or building more viaducts will help address. And so that's what we've been able to do. And we continue to do that. We're still refining the design to this day. It's part of the ongoing environmental impact statement. And so when you hear different numbers on design, that's called progress, and that's a virtue of us listening, and as a virtue of all of you all participating in the ongoing environmental review process. So thank you, and it'll continue to evolve and get better, and those numbers will continue to go up, we hope.
I finally found a question for y'all.